Governor Lujan Grisham. She identified the outdoor recreation realm as a target industry, better diversify and grow our economy in New Mexico. So we celebrated our 5th anniversary this last spring. So as I said, my name is Carl Colonius. I am the outdoor rec planner in the division. I've been in New Mexico for a little over 30 years. I came to Taos County to help co-found Rocky Mountain Youth Corps, which was one of the first independent youth corps in the state. I was the executive director of RMYC for 20 years, leaving in 2015. I then started doing independent consulting, focusing on Intermountain West rural community sustainability. And one of my projects was a regional trail plan that I helped shepherd through here in northern New Mexico. That caught the attention of the Outdoor Rec Division, and they invited me to join their work. So I've been with the Outdoor Rec Division for just a couple of years, and happy to be with you on this call. So the mission of the Outdoor Rec Division is to increase equitable access to the outdoors for all New Mexicans, ensuring healthy outcomes, environmental stewardship, and economic prosperity. Our work is really about creating an outdoor recreation ecosystem in communities throughout the state. To us, this means inclusive and equitable users. We want folks accessing outdoor recreation to reflect the diversity within New Mexico. We're also focused on sustainable and accessible outdoor recreation infrastructure. We want to take our programming to where people live and work. Think about, kind of a high-priced house snugged up against the national forest. Those should not be the only folks able to access public lands. So bringing trails and infrastructure down to where people live and work. And then finally, we're focused on a robust and thriving outdoor recreation economy. The team, pretty small division within the Economic Development Department. Our director is Karina Armijo. Our deputy director, A.J. Jones, is on our call tonight and will be helping to run the board. And then the final member of our team, Michelle Simon, is our marketing and outreach coordinator. So you can see that there are other states that also have a presence. Outdoor recreation is a movement. New Mexico is one of 24 states with some type of outdoor recreation office. And there's a reason for that. The economic impacts of outdoor recreation have begun to be collected by the United States Bureau of Economic Analysis. This has only been going on for a few years. So outdoor recreation is now being measured. And you can see that in 2023, New Mexico's outdoor economy contributed 2.4% or $3.2 billion to our state GDP, employing nearly 30,000 New Mexicans with $1.5 billion in income. Some of the top core outdoor recreation activities include RVing, boating and fishing, snow activities, and equestrian activities. And this is not per capita. This is really the financial impact of those activities. So tonight we're going to be focused on trails, and I'd like to spend just a little time talking about why we focus on trails. So trails provide increased access. I was just talking about trails close to where people live and work. We shouldn't have to, get in a truck or a car and drive to a trailhead. So second point, increased number of social gathering places. It increases our quality of life. You have conversations on trails versus sitting in traffic. Trails increase recreation and active transportation. So recognize that we're not just talking about natural trail surfaces, but trails connect important community hubs, schools, park, businesses, hospitals, churches, revitalizing towns. So think about shoulder enhancements as part of our work as well. Um, Trails also increase stress reduction. They improve attention span, enhance mental well-being. Does anybody else have a partner that say, hey, isn't it a good time for you to go for a bike ride or a run? I fully believe that my mountain bike is my marriage counselor as well as my exercise. So again, equitable access to opportunities for physical activity. We want everyone to have access to our public lands, and I think there was an article just recently about a legal decision to open up an easement to Aldo Leopold Wilderness because some folks had purchased an acre and put a gate up. And it was determined that the public should have access to that public land. So equitable access is one of our values. Trails also boost local economies. Think about gear shops, brew pubs, coffee shops, bed and breakfasts. This is about gross receipts tax coming into small communities. The idea that ecotourism is part of our work. Connecting community hubs can revitalize those towns. The safe routes to schools. It's kind of a famous trail in Bentonville, Arkansas, that is a mountain bike jump track, and it goes to an elementary school. Coolest thing to see kids riding their bike to school. Trails can also showcase culturally and ecologically significant areas. Trails take us to special places. They can also be designed to guide users away from vulnerable areas. So protecting vulnerable areas is a function of our work. The idea of having maybe a boardwalk trail through a wetlands that protects the larger wetlands, or having a hardscape trail through a meadow will keep people on that specific route and diminish the human impact on the larger meadow. And then trails improve a sense of place and shared community identity. Trail systems make communities richer, more interesting, and more vital. So that's a good idea of why we focus on trails. And we do that through the Outdoor Rec Trail Plus grant. So the first pilot project, well, let's just focus on fiscal year 24, about $10 million was awarded to 7-3 projects around the state. Right now in fiscal year 25, we have round 3 of the grant process open. This grant process will close on December 31st. The application is online. We'll talk about that in a minute, but the Trail Plus grant program is used to plan, build out, and maintain recreational infrastructure that is needed to create sustainable access to outdoor recreation. So trailheads, trail system signage, new facility construction, and it is available throughout the state. You can see the pins on this map as the diversity of projects we had through the end of fiscal year 24. To date, we've awarded 179 grants with a value of just over 22 million. And we've done that in 30 New Mexico counties and 11 tribal communities. This program's been running since 2020. So if you think about who is eligible to apply for these grants, that would include tribes, pueblos and nations, municipalities, counties, nonprofits, public preschools, schools and districts, colleges and universities, soil and water conservation districts, acequia, land grant associations. I think it's probably easier to talk about who's not eligible. That would be other state agencies or a federal land management agency. The grants are broken into 3 tiers. Tier 1 is up to $100,000. That would be a local project with a couple of stakeholders. Maybe that's a municipality and a running club, for instance. Tier 2 is up to $500,000. This would be a larger, more regional project. Maybe it's got the forest a county, the city, and you're going to do trailhead improvements or construction, signage, and new trail segments. So a larger scale project would be eligible for the Tier 2 programming. And also introducing in fiscal year 25 a Tier 3 program, which is up to $1 million. We're expecting 1 to 2 of these per year. This would be a legacy type project, multiple partners, significant planning and ramp up. Something that's been in the work for some years, and folks finally say, "Oh, yeah, great! It's great that we're finally getting to that project." All of the grants have a match requirement. So in rural and tribal communities, that match is 2 to 1. So that's 2 state dollars for 1 local match dollar. In the urban communities in New Mexico, it's a 1-to-1 match. And that match can include federal, state dollars, private foundations, cash from fundraising, in-kind volunteer efforts, donated supplies and materials, use of equipment. The example I use is if a county has a public works yard, they've got a big pile of base course, maybe some crusher fines or some gravel. Well, what's the value if you had to buy that? What's the value of the 2-ton pickup truck if you had to rent that to deliver it to the project site? And what's the value of the county employee who's driving that pickup truck? That match adds up pretty quickly. So we've got a pretty flexible and inclusive match protocol for these grants. So this is the shot of our website, which is nmoutside.com. To find our grants on the left there, you can see there's a grants tab. Pull that tab down, Outdoor Recreation Trail Plus grant. That opens up the page on the right of the screen. You can see that there is an application tab. That will take you to a platform called Submittable. Submittable is a grant platform that we use, manages all of our data. We also use that for our reporting protocol. And it's a pretty user-friendly, intuitive platform. And at the bottom of that screen, we have a grant guide. Really encourage folks to spend a little time with that grant guide. It answers a ton of questions. We upgrade it annually. It's got frequently asked questions as well as ideas of what we can and cannot fund. And as I mentioned, the reporting also happens through the Submittable platform. Do be prepared to track your expenditures of your grant and your match dollars. We'll be asking for that in our midpoint progress report, as well as our end of project final report. Here's what the budget looks like. Pretty straightforward. It's got a category on the left with a pull down, and you can identify your cost line item. We ask for a little bit more of a description, and then whether you're going to put your cost into the grant column or the match column, tally it up at the bottom, and it makes it pretty easy peasy. And again, we will be asking for profit and loss for the progress report and the final report. Using the same format is fully functional for that. Getting into a little bit of, kind of the types of projects that we fund. You can see in the slide, we fund motorized projects, projects for equestrians, for mountain bikers. We believe in shared use trails. We don't have enough resources to build every user group their own unique or distinct set of trails. So shared use is our going philosophy. That means trail etiquette is an important part of sharing those trails. Knowing, basically the rule that we put out is to slow down and say hello. Everyone probably recognizes that brown triangle with the hiker and the equestrian and the mountain biker that have hierarchical arrows of deference based upon who you meet on the trail. kind of takes a master's degree to decipher that situation. Well, what if I'm going uphill and they're coming downhill? Slow and say hello. It's something we're recommending for folks to put onto their trail signs and their curriculum, should they have an educational outreach component with their trail systems. Um, but yeah, talking about the user groups, we do a lot of work with motorized recreation. Um, we provided a grant recently to the New Mexico Off-Highway Vehicle Association to replace some Forest Service fence gates with cattle guards. That will keep the cattle on the right side of the fence. You can't accidentally leave a cattle guard open. It's always going to be functional. And you can, kind of cross that with an ATV or a side-by-side or a vehicle without getting out. Great opportunity for the outdoor recreation community to extend an olive branch to the ranchers who get frustrated when gates get left open and cattle move from one pasture to another. We also do a lot of work with the mountain bike community. You can see on the right-hand side, mountain bike optimized trails. That doesn't mean that other users cannot use those trails. Oftentimes, when you're on a mountain bike optimized trail or a route that's been built with mountain bikers in mind, hikers or equestrians won't even notice some of the elements that mountain bikers will take advantage of. The rollers that also function for water control, small berms to help with cornering, slow speed technical features. Think about, you've got an intersection coming up and you don't want mountain bikers to come ripping into that intersection. Well, a rock garden or some large rocks installed in the trail, a meander creates the necessity for mountain bikers to check their speeds, and kind of interact in a more healthy way with other trail users. And then equestrians, really this is about trailheads. Equestrians that are using trails oftentimes travel with significant trailers. So trailheads should be optimized for parking, where a truck and trailer won't get parked in or need to back up. So a pull through and some good infrastructure makes that a much more enjoyable experience for equestrians. Nothing worse than getting back to the trailhead and having a couple of Subarus blocking in your truck, necessitating a backup around a corner. So this is just some sensitivities that we bring to the table, and we work with all sorts of different groups throughout the state. One commonality between different types of trails are the trail signage. We're in the process of putting out a trail sign guide for folks who might not have a tremendous amount of experience of designing signage for a trail system. You want to start with a trailhead sign that has the full detailed map with a system description. Information you want to include are allowable users, the distance of different trails, the difficulty of trails. We like to include leave no trace. And I already mentioned the trail etiquette, slow and say hello. That actually comes out of American Trails by way of Marin County, California. It has all of its own graphics and an educational set of talking points. And it's a no-cost plug and play. And it makes a lot of sense to include that on your trail signage as well as your educational material. The second set of signage that you see is the wayfinding signage. Some folks like to get lost on trails, but that should be a choice, not a mandate. So intersections marked with this type of trail, a simplified route that gives you an indication of where you are. Very simple to number your intersections and give folks an idea of not just where they are, but where they are in relationship to the larger system. This is also a great tool for search and rescue. If you're not familiar with the trail system, it can help you identify where you are and expedite someone coming in to, help pull someone out of a trail system. The last kind of style of trail signs would be the interpretive signage. Helps educate or create a narrative, generating a positive user experience. Think about, yeah, this is a great view, but did you know that this is where the New Mexico militia held off the Texas Confederate sources? Because you're in Glorieta Pass. And yeah, it's a great view, but it's even cooler when you get a little bit of history with that. So interpretive signage helps to make that a richer experience for folks. And again, we do have a trail guide that's in production. It's being peer reviewed right now, and we should have that out relatively soon in the 2025. So just talking about some of the projects that we have funded in the last few years, it is Trails Plus. And I've been talking a lot about trails, but I want to make sure folks recognize that we've got other projects that are allowable. For instance, the outdoor classroom at the Taos Academy Charter School. This gets the kids out of the four walls of the school into that fenced courtyard, picnic tables, planted some trees, really a pretty nice environment. And then the middle picture, this was a project in partnership between the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District and the Adobe Whitewater Coalition. And it's put-ins and takeouts on the Rio Grande. So it's, kind of a non-traditional, that's not a trail. Well, it is access to recreation. And along with the put-in, the boat ramp you see there, there's a significant parking lot next to that. So you don't have to carry your boat, kayak, stand-up paddleboard from a parking lot that's about 200 meters away. So real convenience for folks. That project also includes some signage on river, letting you know where you are, when the next takeout is, helping to give folks a little bit of information while they're on the river. And then the last picture is part of an environmental education facility. This is in Mora County. And during COVID, a camp began to partner with the Mora Independent School District and needed a bathroom. So we were able to help them out and pay for the bathroom that allows them to host additional outdoor educational programming. You can see that Cimarron Group shelter there. This is directly in front of their village administrative facilities in a public park. And it's a gorgeous facility. The orange fencing is gone, but yeah, it is an opportunity for folks to get outside, have community events. I know there have been a couple of weddings and some birthday celebrations in that facility. Another bathroom in the center picture. This is the town of Red River in Millette Park, which is co-located to the Carson National Forest. And yes, we know that it's not ADA accessible, but it wasn't finished. So the gravel does come up to the edge of the concrete for the folks that caught me on that last time. We also do a lot of Frisbee golf courses. Significant return for a relatively small investment. All ages, super fun programming, both for kind of a bunch of groms like you see there, as well as the pros. And we've seen a significant number of these. Did I just lose my connection?
Yes. Picture.
Wow. All right. It's going to take me just a second to pull that back up. My apologies.
The screen looks to be frozen on your file system currently, Carl.
Yeah, I just lost my virtual connection, so I need to sign back in. Anybody have any questions for me to see if I can multitask while I log back in?
There's one in the chat.
Sure, let's have it.
Will this grant support school gardens? Is the one that's sitting in the chat.
Yeah, if especially if it's connected to curriculum that brings those kids out into that outdoor facility. We've had projects where we have restored heritage orchards that's co-located to a youth education facility. We're also helping the city of Las Vegas build a community garden as part of their nature trail along the river that runs through. So yes, the answer is yes.
I have a question if you got time.
Sure do.
So with all of these opportunities, we operate a nonprofit. I know you and I have talked before, and Brad Childs.
Hi, Brad.
Yeah, Treehouse Camp, Santa Fe Treehouse Camp.
Sure.
So we're a nonprofit, and we are open to the public, but rarely do we have non-fee supported access. And yet we're surrounded by national forests and trailheads. And so I'm wondering, what is the balance between free public access and where you having private connections with school groups and other public groups? What is the temperature on support for those things? I as an example, I noticed that the Taos School District had the outdoor classroom. So
yep.
Is that just for the students, or can the public come and use that anytime they want? Or how does that work between public access, but not necessarily for anybody in the public?
Yeah, I think the idea being that you would have programmatic access, and as long as your fee system is not prohibitively expensive, that would not necessarily be a problem.
Okay.
So yeah, school facilities obviously have control over their campuses, both during the day. And I know that the Taos Charter School does have some events that are open to the public, but by and large, that facility is available to their students and their students alone. And just as an aside, can folks see my screen again?
Yes.
Fantastic. So yes, Brad, you would be an eligible applicant. You would need to make the case based upon the number of participants you have. And if there is a mechanism, because you do border the Santa Fe National Forest, for public access to use and I'm not sure if you're building a trail or an outdoor training facility, but if there's a mechanism that would allow the public access to public lands, that would strengthen your proposal.
Great. Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to talk with you offline if that didn't get your question.
Okay.
All right. Now all I need is the next slide. There we go. Okay. So a couple of other projects that we funded in the past. The Tijeras Biozone, fantastic facility just east of Albuquerque. It creates a true ADA accessible trail, but it has a real intensity on disabled access, visual, hearing, mobility. Along that trail, you can see that there are stations that are focused on those specific disabilities. So for instance, for the visually impaired, there is a learning station that's very close to the creek, and you can do some bird call identification. There is a braille sign that's at that station, really focuses on creating a rich experience for those folks that have disabilities. So fantastic project that's under construction now. should be completed by next year. The other two photos is a project in partnership with Taos Pueblo. The picture on the upper right is what the New Mexico 150 looks like currently. The bottom picture is a visualization of what it will look like after the trail is complete. This will be about a 4.5-mile trail connecting the K-Tau parking lot, or the old blinking light for folks familiar with Taos County, up to Arroyo Seco on the way to Taos Ski Valley. New Mexico 150 doesn't have any shoulders to speak of. Traffic moves very quickly, and yet it's a vital connecting road into the town of Taos from those communities, which include Valdez, Des Montes, Arroyo Seco, the village of Taos Ski Valley, El Salto. All of those communities will be connected to the town of Taos through this non-motorized rec trail. So the design phase is being funded now, and it's a great opportunity to talk about. Well, Taos Pueblo has this trail being built on their perimeter. The other part of their grant was to restore some of their traditional trails that were devastated by a wind event in late 2021. So literally thousands of trees down over those trails. Those trails will be restored, those trees removed. They will not be open to the public because it is within the interior of Taos Pueblo, but we consider that public. So a tribal entity applying for Trail Plus does not need to open that project up to the general public as long as it's open up to the tribal population. If it's opened up and it's not, inconvenient, or if it's not inconvenient for the tribe, then we would appreciate the New Mexico 150 trail, it being open to the public, but not a requirement. So just to spend a little time on the planning process. This, kind of the phases of project planning, really starting off with a feasibility study is what we would recommend. Your planning process should include diverse voices. You should intentionally target and include parts of the community that you think will be, kind of contrary to your goals. If you don't have that diversity of voices, your project will probably hit the rocks at some point in time. So making sure that your community engagement is thorough and documented. This doesn't guarantee that you won't hit the NIMBY buzzsaw, NIMBY standing for not in my backyard. But you do increase your odds of getting a well thought out and critically analyzed project on the ground. So please pay attention in your planning process to be inclusive. Looking at moving from a feasibility study to a concept plan to a master plan. This is, kind of the drawing on the napkin to a sketch on a legal pad to a fully framed master plan that has a cost analysis, your users identified, a certain scale. There's kind of the idea that you wouldn't build a house from the drawing on the napkin. So the same thing with our projects. The second phase in this slide is really looking at the environmental clearances, design, development, and construction documents. Having that master plan is great, but if you're working with the Federal Land Management Agency, you will need to go through NEPA. This is the National Environmental Policy Act that requires that we look at the impacts on wildlife, on cultural resources, on environment. So you'll be working with archaeologists, you'll be working with wildlife biologists, you'll be working with the State Historic Preservation Office to make sure that your project does no harm. And kind of knowing that you need to do this on a project with every federal land management agency Forewarned is forearmed. We do have the capacity to use Trail Plus grants to pay for that NEPA process. And that's a question that you should be talking to with your federal land management partners. All the way through construction documents that would give a trail contractor the capacity to build without having their hand held. Having that level of detailed instruction allows your project to be built to your specs. If you're looking for a single track that winds through a meadow and you end up with a sidewalk, that can obviously be disappointing. But kind of putting the energy into making sure that design and construction documents are thorough and complete. And you've got a check-in protocol with your, kind of construction team so that they don't get too far out in front. We obviously pay for the construction of these projects. And I also want to highlight the post-build maintenance. Trails do not take care of themselves. And for folks may or may not know, that the USDA or the National Forest has discontinued their 1039 or seasonal workforce capacity for recreation programming. It was a budget decision by USDA, which necessitates the forest to partner with community-based organizations for the ongoing maintenance of our trail systems. We do have a recommended trail stewardship strategy. I'm not going to go into that in great detail here, but when you are building these projects, you need to have a maintenance plan in place. And when I talk about with municipalities or maybe it's a county, if in your application you say, yeah, we're going to use community volunteers, you better have a letter of support from those community organizations. And it should be very clear that they're accepting that responsibility. Please don't make that assumption. And if you're, kind of going to go above and beyond that, you should budget either for your internal staff to maintain the trails or budget to contract with someone to maintain those trails. It is an important part of making sure that the trails stay clean, stay safe, get taken care of on a regular basis. And just real quick, our 3 steps to trail maintenance include engaging in a trail master training, and we're putting the pieces in place to ramp up our support of trail master training to kind of give community volunteers an opportunity to learn a little bit more about trail maintenance. Then within your community, hosting trail stewardship events. Having a barbecue at the end of a trail stewardship event, pumping up the volume, kind of making sure that your volunteers feel appreciated, getting them to come back for your next trail stewardship event. And you can schedule those on Public Lands Day or National Trails Day, Earth Day. And then the last step would be out of that group of community volunteers, is there a business, a civic group, a high school sports team that could adopt a trail system, adopt a trail segment, get their name on the trailhead sign, acknowledging their volunteerism. That will help maintain your trails in the long run. So that kind of wraps up the presentation. Happy to open it up to questions. I do want to encourage folks to really spend a little time with our grant guide, and do not hesitate to either toss me an email or contact me by my cell. I'm happy to talk about your project before you submit a proposal. And let's open it up for questions. Do we have anybody that is has a burning question?
Just a quick question. Do you work with land grants?
We do.
Awesome. Thank you.
It is 4:55. Thank you. I do have a question. What do you say was the match for the municipalities?
If you are in a rural community, and if I think you're in Deming,
Yes.
yeah. So Deming, as a smaller community, your match would be 2-to-1. So that's 2 state dollars for 1 local match dollar.
So I got those.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And what is the deadline? It ends of December 31st. Okay, never
Yeah,
mind.
that's right. We're in our 3rd round of this fiscal year. And the deadline is December 31st, but the next round will open up on January 1 and will close February 28th. And we are hoping to obligate all of the funds that we have available by the end of that round.
And I'm assuming you only applied once, right?
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
You can only apply one round, regardless, could be December or January, it's just one time.
Yeah, that's correct. Please do not submit multiple applications in order to up your odds. We'd be looking for 1 application per entity. We do allow grantees to apply in consecutive fiscal years. So you have the opportunity to receive a Trail Plus grant. And as long as you're making good progress on that grant and have the capacity staff-wise and financially to incorporate a second proposal, please feel free to apply in the next fiscal year.
That's great. That answers one of the questions that we already had in the chat as well, Carl.
Fantastic.
I can give you another one from the chat.
Let's go.
So John Conrad, it says, asked, what is the cutoff for small communities in terms of size?
Oh, okay. So now we're talking about the differentiation between rural and urban. So urban communities, and this is in the grant guide. Las Cruces, Santa Fe and Albuquerque, and Farmington. Is that it, AJ?
For rural communities, the definition
Yeah,
of them?
I just named the urban communities, and everybody else would be rural.
Yeah, so Los Alamos County, Albuquerque, Rio Rancho, Farmington, Las Cruces, Roswell, and Santa Fe. And within a 10-mile radius around those cities.
And again, that information is in the grant guide. If you didn't take notes on that.
Can I just clarify? You're saying LA or Santa Fe County, but you're talking about Santa Fe City as urban, and then the county, depending on your location, if it's 10 miles away from the city border.
That is
Not
correct.
county.
Yeah.
City.
City of Santa Fe.
Okay. Thank you.
And for this type of grant, what is the, I guess I could say the max amount that I can apply for?
That would depend upon the project, and I'm happy to talk about that with you individually.
Okay.
Is really a local project. And I was just down in Deming earlier this fall. And let's see, I think that was a Luna County project, was the skate park next to the bowling alley bumper car facility.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm happy to talk through your specifics with you individually.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just rewind 1 second. We lost a slide in our when I lost my connection there. We're also doing a lot of work post disaster. We are doing more than a couple $1 million worth of investment in post fire trail
You're
restoration.
gonna need to walk around and
Hey,
walk them
Cindy.
around.
There we go. She muted.
I got it.
So yeah, we've got a ton of resources going into communities and regions of the state post fire, both the Calf Canyon, Hermit Peak, as well as the Black Fire down in the Gila, are receiving a ton of support to restore access to those areas. We're working with the National Forest Foundation and Rocky Mountain Youth Corps and New Mexico Wild and a few other groups to help bring those communities back, especially communities such as Silver City that depend upon access to the Gila Wilderness for economic development. We want to make sure that that access is reestablished as quickly as we can. Do we have any other questions?
This is Mario from Zuni. Do the projects have to be shovel ready, or can we use grants to identify a project?
Yeah, so planning and design is an allowable expense. If you are looking at, kind of getting the engineering or the layout, and I was just out in Zuni a couple of weeks ago, and be happy to talk about any specifics that you have. But yes, Trail Plus grants would be eligible for design, planning, engineering, and project prep, including any environmental clearances or NEPA processes that you might need to go through.
Thank you.
Sure.
There's no more
Carl,
questions in the chat, except if this recording will be available to share. You can all follow up with Carl if you would like a copy of this presentation afterwards. We are recording it today.
Thank you.
And if you want a copy of the slide deck, just shoot me an email and I will I'll send you my PowerPoint.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the PowerPoint that I send you will not all of a sudden go blank in the middle of it. I guarantee. Yeah, sure. Let me share that I just saw a question about contact information. So there's our contact information. Our website is nmoutside.com. We're all able to be found on that website, and there's our emails. Marvis, did I see you raise a hand for a question?
No, actually, my question was addressed in the chat.
Great, fantastic.
Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, but all right, well, hey, thank you very much for all of your time. Appreciate your interest in this grant opportunity. We feel very lucky to have this opportunity to put resources throughout the state. The idea that this is an economic development strategy that